In this tutorial, I'll show you how to create realistic balloons in Blender. So I'll first be showing you how to model the balloons, and then we'll be creating 3 procedural balloon materials. So the first one here is this balloon random color. So this one will change the color whenever you duplicate the object. Then we have a polka dotted balloon, and then we also have this balloon here, and this one has a custom color. And after we create each procedural material, I'll show you how to join them together into custom node groups. So for the first one here, this is just the base balloon material. So we have the base color, so you can change this to whatever color you want. Then we have the roughness of the balloon to make it more rough or shiny. Then we have the transparency if you want to make the balloon more invisible so you can see through it. And then we have this transmission value, and this is kind of that clear plastic. So if you want to be very clear, you can kind of see through the balloon more, or you can turn the transmission down if you want to be less clear. Then we also have this clear coat, and the clear coat is basically a shininess over the surface of the balloon. You can kind of see there's that little shininess there on the plastic. Then we also have the clear coat roughness to make that clear coat more rough or more shiny. And then we also have the clear coat tint. Then we have the polka dot balloon. So for this one, we have the dot scale, and then we also have the dot's individual size. And then we have the balloon color, which is that main color. And then we also have the dots color. Then we have the randomness of those dots, and we also have the roughness of the balloon. We have the transmission value of the balloon, so you can make it more see-through or less see-through. Then we also have the transparency if you just want to make the balloon more invisible. And then we have the clear coat as well, and the clear coat roughness to kind of add that shininess on the surface of the balloon. And then also the clear coat tint. And then finally, we have this balloon random color. So this one here, if I duplicate it, it's going to randomly generate a different color. So if you're creating like a birthday party scene or something, maybe you're creating a birthday card or something, and you want to have like a 3D render of some balloons, you can just quickly duplicate them, and you can make all these different colored balloons. So for this one, we have the hue of the balloons. So you can change the hue. You can also change the saturation, and then you can also change the value. So those are 3 colors you can change. You can also change the transmission here, and then again we have the clear coat, and we have the clear coat roughness, and then we have this clear coat tint if you want to kind of change that. Then we have the roughness of the balloon, and then finally the transparency. And then at the very end of this tutorial, I'll show you how you can add a logo on the balloon. So for example, if you wanted to add like a happy birthday image onto the balloon, I'll show you how you can add that onto the color map. And if you'd like to purchase the finished project files of this tutorial, you can get that on my Gumroad store and my Patreon page with the links in the description. And if you'd like to purchase more of my procedural materials, then definitely check out my Ultimate Blender Procedural Material Pack, which comes with all of my materials pre-set out for Blender's asset browser with custom thumbnails, sorted catalogs, and customizable node groups. You can also purchase any of my materials individually on my Gumroad store. And to learn how to create more procedural materials, you can check out my Blender Procedural Material Tutorial playlist here on YouTube. The links are in the description. So let's start by modeling the balloon objects. But if you already have a balloon object and you want to jump straight to the procedural material, then you can check the timestamps in the video description or in the YouTube timeline, and you can just jump to the part where we create the material. So let's go to the add menu, and I'm going to start by adding a UV sphere, and I'll scale the UV sphere down by 0.2, and I'll press Ctrl A and apply the scale. Then I'm going to press Ctrl 2 to add a subdivision surface with 2 levels, and I'll use the object context menu and shade it smooth. Then I'll hit the tab key to go into edit mode, and I'm going to click on this button here to turn on the proportional editing, and I'm going to select the bottom vertex, and I'll bring it down on the Z-axis. Let's scroll our mouse wheel to make the proportional editing bigger, and I'll just bring it down like that, and that's pretty much the shape of the balloon. I might want to select a loop here though, and maybe bring the loop down just to make it a little bit more even, but that's pretty close to the balloon shape. Then I'm going to zoom in here, and I'll hold down the Alt key and select that loop there, and I'll duplicate it, and then I'll scale it in. Actually, we need to turn off the proportional editing first, and then we can scale it in and bring it down. Let's just scale it down like that. And I'll zoom into this and scale it down even more, and then bring it up inside the balloon, and I'll extrude it and bring it down, and then I can extrude it again and rotate it, and extrude it again and rotate it and start to scale it up. We'll extrude it again, and then extrude again, scale it really big. And then we'll extrude this again, and then we'll extrude it, and then immediately after we're going to scale it. Let's scale that down there, and then we can extrude it back in. All right, just like that. Let's hold down the Z button, go into wireframe, and we can extrude it again and scale it down, and then extrude it back one more time. All right, go back to solid view. So that's looking pretty good, but you can see there's some weird issues there. That's because we need to select everything in edit mode and press Shift N to recalculate the normals, and that's going to fix that. So let's press the L key with our mouse hovered over that spot there, and we can scale it down and bring it up. We're just going to stick it there in the bottom of the balloon, and we'll use the object context menu and shade it smooth. And I think that could be a little bit bigger, so in edit mode, I'm going to scale that up a little bit bigger. All right, so something like that is pretty good. We now have that little part there, which is tied at the end. So now let's go back into edit mode, and I'll go to the add menu, and for the ribbon, I'm going to add a plane, and we'll scale the plane down really small, and I'm going to bring it over. Let's also rotate it on the x-axis and scale it down pretty small. We're just going to stick it right there, and then we're going to select the two vertices here on the end, and we'll extrude it and extrude it again, and we're just going to extrude it all the way around here. So just extrude it around that balloon there on the bottom, and if it's going through, you might want to like go to the edge select and kind of pull that edge out there. Go to the edge select again and extrude that out. We can just kind of have it overlap the first one. All right. And then I can start to rotate it down. We can extrude it down. And then if we go to front view, I can extrude it and rotate it and extrude it again and extrude it again like that. And then at the very end here, let's just extrude it a little bit so that it's kind of sharp there. Let's go back to object mode. And again, we'll shade it smooth with the object context menu. And I think in edit mode, I also want to select the ribbon and maybe scale the ribbon up on the Z axis and bring it down a little bit and kind of rotate it and just make the ribbon kind of moving along there. All right, so that is it for the balloon. So then I just duplicated the balloon object 3 times so that there are now 3 balloons. And then I also added this camera here, and I just pointed the camera at the objects. And if I select the camera and go over here to the object data properties, I turn the focal length of the camera up to 80 just to kind of zoom it in a bit. Now, as for the lighting, I started out by adding this area light right here. So it's just a big area light to add some nice reflections, and I turned the power to 50. And then also, if I go here to the world properties, I added in this Machine Shop 02 1K HDRI from polyhaven.com. So I'll have the link in the video description if you'd like to download it to get some nice realistic lighting and reflections. And after you download the HDRI, you can click on the yellow dot next to color. You can choose environment texture, and then just click on the open button and open up the downloaded HDRI. So now let's go here to the render properties, and I'm going to use the Cycles rendering engine because I'm going for realism, but you could also use Blender Eevee if you want to. And then let's open up the film tab here, and I checkmark the transparent button just so the background is transparent so it's not quite as distracting. It kind of looks nicer in the scene. And then also I went here to the color management, and I turned the view transform to filmic, and I set the look to very high contrast. So I'm in the shading workspace, so I have the 3D viewport right over here, and I have the shader editor right over here. So I'll just select the first balloon, I'll click on new to add a new material, and I'm going to actually make the ribbon material first. So now for this material, I'm going to make the base color fully black, and then I'm going to turn down the roughness a bit so it's a bit more shiny. So now let's click and drag and drop the ribbon material onto all of these other balloons, but then what I'm going to do is go into edit mode, and let's actually bring out the side panel here, and I'll deselect everything, and then use the L key to select the parts of the mesh, which are the balloon. So now if I click over here to go to the material properties, I want to click on the plus here to add a new material. Let's click on new, and I can call it balloon, and then I will click on the assign button. So now the balloon material is just on the top of the balloon. And then I'm also going to be using the Node Wrangler add-on in the video. So to enable it, you can click on edit, you can go to the preferences, and then over here on the add-ons tab, you can just search for Node and just enable the Node Wrangler add-on, and I'll show you how to use it in the video. So we're first going to start by just creating the base balloon material. So we're going to start by making it whatever color you want. So you can change this to whatever color you want. I'm going to go with this bright red color. And if you want to use the same color I'm using, the hex value will be FF0000. And then I want to turn this roughness down to a 0.4 so the balloon is a bit more shiny. So now let's open up this transmission here, and I'm going to turn the transmission weight to a 0.8, and that's going to make it look like this very thin plastic. So it kind of has that rubbery material and it's kind of see-through. Then let's open up the coat here because I want to add kind of that shiny coat on the surface, and I'll turn the coat weight all the way up to 1. And then on the roughness here, I'll turn this to a 0.14 on the coat weight. And that is it for the basic procedural balloon material. So I'll now join this together into a custom node group, and we'll just add the values that we want to control. So I'll just select the principled shader, I'll press Ctrl G to join it together into a node group. Now if you hit the N key to open up the side panel, because this was just one node, it added all of the values to the custom node group. So if you hit the N key for the side panel and go to the group tab, I'm going to click on the very bottom one here, and then I will scroll up here and I'll hit the minus button, and I'm just going to get rid of all of these. So I'll just continue to hit the minus button and just get rid of all of them except the BSDF, and then I'll double click on the BSDF and I'll rename it to shader because I like that better. So now I can start by plugging up all the custom values. So I first want to plug the base color color into the group input. And then let's also plug the roughness into the group input because I want to control that. And then this alpha here, let's plug that up. And the alpha, I'm going to double click on this to rename it. And I'll rename this to transparency. Then I want the weight, so the transmission weight, let's plug that into the extra socket. And instead of transmission weight, I'll just call it transmission. Then let's take the coat weight here, plug that up. And instead of coat weight, I'm just going to call it clear coat because I like that better. And then also the roughness, we'll plug this up here and I'll double click on this to rename it and I'll call it clear coat roughness. And then also the tint here, we'll plug that into the extra socket and I'll rename this again to clear coat tint. All right, so I'll hit the tab key to go out of the node group and I can close that side panel. Let's drag this out to make it bigger and drag it over here. And then I can copy the material name and I can paste it here into the node group. So it is called balloon. So now we have the base color, so we can control the base color. We also have the roughness of the balloon and we also have the transparency if we want to make it super transparent and see-through. And then we also have the transmission. Then we have the clear coat and we also have the clear coat roughness to kind of add that second level of shininess. And then we also have the clear coat tint if we just want to add a tint to that clear coat. So that's it for the first balloon material. So we'll select the second one now. We're going to open up the side panel. We're going to go into edit mode and I'll hit the L key with my mouse hovered over these two pieces and that's going to be the balloon. So we'll click on the plus here to add a new material. Let's click on new and then I'll rename this material to balloon polka dots and then I will click on the assign button so it has that material on the object. So I'll close the side panel and this material will use a few more nodes, but it's still going to be pretty simple. So I'll go to the add menu and I'm going to search for a Voronoi texture. Let's drop it here and I can control shift and select the Voronoi to preview it. We can go back to object mode just to see that. Now you can see that the Voronoi is really stretched. So if I select the Voronoi, I'll press Control T and that's going to add the texture coordinate and mapping. And that's the feature of the node wrangler. Now I want to use the object coordinates, so I'll plug the object up to the vector, and now it is placed correctly on the mesh so it's not distorted or stretched. So now let's change some of the Voronoi settings, so I'll turn the scale to a 2.9, and then this random value here, I'm going to turn this to a 0.456, so a 0.456. I find that's just a good value to make it look more random so that the dots aren't overlapping each other. So now I want to make them more contrasty, so I will search for a color ramp and we'll put this right here and I'll drag the black tab over here and then I'm going to flip the white tab and I'll drag it over here and then you can change the size of the dots. So now if I go back to the Voronoi texture, you can see if the random value is turned to 1, you can see there's a lot of the dots which are overlapping. So that's why I turned down the random so that not all of the dots are overlapping. So that looks a little bit better. Now later on in the custom node group, I'm going to want to change the size of the dots. So if I go to the add menu, I'll search for the hue saturation value and I'll put it between the Voronoi and the color ramp. So now I can change the value and that is going to make it brighter or darker. So that is going to change the size of each one of those polka dots. And then finally, I want to make the custom colors. So we'll go to the add menu and we're going to search for a mix color. We'll drop this here and the color ramp can go into the factor. So now I can make the two colors here in A and B. So for color A, I'm going to make this kind of like a purpley color, but of course change it to whatever you want. And for color B, I'll make this fully white. And for color A, if you want to use the same exact hex value that I'm using, you can punch in a hex value of 72.3C.FF. And then of course for color B, just make sure that's fully white. So now the mix result can go into the base color and I can control shift and select the principled shader to preview it. So now it's also changed some of the settings. So I'm going to turn the roughness to a 0.32 so it is more shiny. And we'll open up the transmission. And again, I'll turn the transmission weight to a 0.8. Then we'll open up the coat here and I'll turn the coat weight all the way up to 1 and I'll turn the roughness to a 0.13. And that is it for the procedural material. So let's now join it together into a node group. So I'll box select all the nodes except the material output. I'll press Ctrl G to join it together into a node group. And I'll hit the tab key to go out of the node group and I'll drag the node group over here. We will copy the material name and we're going to paste it here in the node group. And let's also make it a bit bigger. So I'll now go into the node group and I'll hit the N key to open the side panel. And I'm going to click here to rename this and I'll rename that to shader. So outside of the node group, you can see that socket there is called shader because I like that better. So now we can plug up all the custom values. So I first want to control the dot scale. So we'll take the Voronoi scale here, and we'll put that into the extra socket here, and I'll double click on this to rename it, and I'll rename it to dot scale. Then I want to control the dot size. So we have this value here on the hue saturation value that'll change the size. So we'll put the value into the extra socket there. Double click on this, and I'll rename it to dots size, or you could call it dots individual size, or whatever makes sense for you. Then I want to control the colors, so I'll drag the group input over here, and I'll put color A into the extra socket, and then color B into the extra socket. So color A is going to be called balloon color, and color B is going to be called dots color. Let's also drag this back here, and we'll take the randomness of the Voronoi texture and stick that into the extra socket as well. And then I also want to control the roughness, so we'll put the roughness over here, or let's drag the group input over here towards the roughness. We can take the roughness from the principled shader and put that to the extra socket. Then we're going to take the alpha here, and we'll put the alpha into the extra socket, and I'll rename it transparency. And then we'll take the transmission weight, we'll put that into the extra socket, and this I'm just going to rename to transmission. Then we'll add the clear coat, so let's drag this down here, and we can take this weight here, we'll put that into the extra socket, and I'll rename this to clear coat weight. Then we have the roughness, plug that into the extra socket, I'll rename this to clear coat roughness, and then also the tint, put that into the extra socket, and let's rename this to clear coat tint. All right, I'll drag this over here, and we'll hit the tab key to go out of the node group, and I will close the side panel. And let's just make sure this material is working correctly. So we have the dot scale, we have the dot size, then we also have the balloon color, and we also have the dots color. We have the randomness of the dots, the balloon roughness, the transparency, and also the transmission. And then we have the coat weight, we have the clear coat roughness, and then also the clear coat tint. So that's it for the balloon polka dots. So let's now do the last one here. So I'll select the last balloon, and we need to give it a new material. So go over here to the side panel. We're going to click on the plus here to add a new material. Let's click on new, and I'll rename this to balloon random color. So we'll hit the tab key to go into edit mode. I'll hit the L key to select both of those two parts of the balloon, and I'll click on the assign button. All right, so now we'll create the random colored balloon. So to make the random colors, I'll go to the add menu, and I'm gonna search for the object info node. Let's put this here. Now this random value on the object info is gonna randomly generate colors from white to black per object. So when I duplicate the objects, each object will be a different color. So I'll put the random into the base color, but then to make all the custom colors, we can add a color ramp. We'll put the color ramp after the object info, and now what I can do is make all the colors. So I'll first click here, and I'm going to start by making this kind of like a yellow color. You can hold down the control key and click to add another tab, and then this one here I'm going to make like an orangey color. Click here to add another tab, and this one I'll make like a red color. Click here to add another tab, and this one we're going to make kind of like a pink color. We'll add another one here, and we're going to do like a purpley color, maybe a dark purple. Then we're going to add a blue color, so let's do that. Then I can also maybe do a light blue, that would be pretty cool as well. And then finally, this last one here, this one is going to be a green color, so we'll make that a bright green. Now, if I duplicate this, move it over here, if I just continue to duplicate this, you can see what it's doing. However, one thing that I don't want to do is I don't want to have it blend between these two colors. I want to just be the colors that we selected. So we'll click on the linear here, and we'll change it to constant instead. So now you can see it's just going to be the colors that we chose. And if you want it to be like more blue, you could turn this up so there's more of a chance of it being blue, or more red. So you can kind of drag these around, but I'm going to make them pretty even. Let's also drag the green one out because we want some of them to be green. So I'll make these pretty even spacing. So just like that. So I'm going to just delete these extra balloons here because I don't need them. So now we'll select the main balloon again, and we can now do a few more settings. So I want to add a hue saturation value here. So let's go to the add menu. We're going to search for hue. We'll put the hue saturation value between the color ramp and the principled shader. So now we have the hue and the saturation and the value settings. So we can use that in the custom node group. So now we'll just do the same exact settings as we've done before. So I'll turn the roughness down, and for this one, I'm going to turn this to a 0.35. Then we'll open up the transmission here, and I'll turn the transmission weight to a 0.8, and then we'll open up the coat settings here, and the coat I'll turn all the way up to 1. The coat roughness I'll turn to a 0.13, and then I'll leave the tint how it is. So let's join this together into a node group. So I'll box select the nodes, hit Ctrl G to join it together into a node group, and we can add up all the custom values. So I first want to add the hue and the saturation and the value just to edit the colors. So I'll put the hue, the saturation, and the value up to the group input. Then let's add the alpha, so I'll put the alpha there into the extra socket. We'll hit the N key to open up the side panel, and I'm going to rename this to transparency. Then let's add the transmission weight, stick that into the extra socket, and I'll just rename this to transmission. Then we'll also take the coat weight and the coat roughness and also the tint, and then if I rename these, I'm going to just add the word clear, so clear coat, and I don't want to use the weight here, so just clear coat, and then clear coat roughness, and then the last one here is going to be clear coat tint. And then also let's add the roughness of the material, so put the roughness into the extra socket there, and I could actually click and drag the roughness up here so it's more at the top. So let's drag the group input over here. I'll hit the N key to close the side panel, and we'll hit tab to go out of the node group. So I'll drag the end of the node group out so it's a bit bigger, drag it over here, and we can copy the name and we can paste it here into the node group. So now let's just make sure this is working correctly. So we have the hue and also the saturation and also the value. Then we have the roughness, the transparency, and the transmission. We also have the clear coat roughness, and then finally the tint if we want to change that. And then also if I duplicate this, you can see every time I duplicate the balloon, it's going to be a random different color. Now the last thing that I'm going to do in this video is show you how to add an external image texture. So I downloaded a happy birthday image from Pixabay. It's a free image. You can download it with the link in the description if you want to follow along. So what I'm going to do is select the first balloon that we added, and I'll hit tab to go into the node group. And I'll drag the group input back here, and what I'm actually going to do is just unplug the base color here, so we'll just unplug that so that we have the base color now. So I'll press Shift A, we'll go to the search, we're going to search for an image texture, we'll drop the image here, and then I'll click on the open button. And here is the happy birthday image that I downloaded from Pixabay. Again, link will be in the description if you want to download this, or just use whatever image you want to add. Now, something that is important about this image is that it has an alpha transparency, so I can just add this on top of the original color. So I'll click on this image and click on open, and now I can put the color into the base color and we can see where it's going to show up. Now, if for some reason it set this to UDIM tiles, I don't know why Blender does this, but it does for some images. So if you click on the UDIM tiles, just change this to single image because we don't want to use the UDIM tiles. Now you can see the image isn't showing up. So what I actually want to do is take the alpha, and we'll put the alpha into the base color so we can see the transparency. So now what we need to do is we need to UV unwrap the object to place it where we want. So I've already UV unwrapped it, so it does look kind of good where it is. The happy birthday is right there, but I'll just show you how I'm going to UV unwrap this. So I'll go into edit mode, and I'll go to the side here, and I'll hold down the Alt key and select that loop there, and then hold down the Shift and Alt key and select that other loop right there. So now we kind of have half of it selected. I'll hit U, and we are going to mark seam. Then if I select everything, I'll hit the U button, and we can just click on unwrap to unwrap it. So now you're going to need to go over to the UV editor, so you can click here to go to the UV editing workspace. And if I zoom in here, I can go up into the rendered viewport mode to see how this is looking, and just press the A key to make sure you select the entire mesh. And so here's the UVs, so I can scale them and I can move them around and I can rotate them, and you can just stick this to where you want. So I'm going to stick this here. This is the front of the balloon, so I can rotate it and scale it. And then if I deselect everything, I'll hit the L key to select the back of the balloon, and I can rotate it and move it over, and we will just stick that there and kind of stick it on top. And then if I select everything, I think I'll scale everything up a little bit. So now you can see if I look over here on the side, you can see that the happy birthday text is going around the balloon. So now we'll go back over here to the shading. We'll go into the rendered viewport mode, and you can see the happy birthday is like all over the place. So if you like that, you could leave that how it is, but I'm instead going to click on the repeat, and I'm going to change it to clip instead. So it's going to clip it. So now you can see the happy birthday text is just on the front and the back. Now this has an alpha transparency, so I want to mix it on top of the red image. So to do this, we'll go to the add menu, and I'm going to search for the mix color, and we're going to drop the mix color here right here after the image. So drop it there, and we're going to take the alpha and we're going to put that into the factor. So that's determining what parts are going to be color A and what parts are going to be color B. So now if I unplug the base color here, I can take this red color and I can put this here into color A and color B. So we'll take the result and we'll put that into the base color. So now I believe it's color B. Let's turn down the color. Yeah, so it's color B. So for color A, you can make this the main balloon color. And then for color B, this is going to be the text color. So I like fully black. I think fully black looks pretty good. So you can just make it fully black. So now you can see that because we're using the alpha is just black and white. So that is determining what part's A and what part is B. So now you can see that we have the red balloon and then it looks like the text is on top. So this isn't procedural, of course, because it's an external image texture, but that is how you can add text onto a balloon. So then if you wanted to plug this up to the custom colors, you could like plug A into the base color. And then if you take B, you could plug this into the extra socket. If I hit the N key to open up the side panel, I could double click on this to rename it, and I could call it like text color. I could also drag the text color right up here next to the base color. So now if I go outside of the node group and just Control Shift and select this shader to preview it, you can see we now have a custom color for the text, and we also have a custom color here for the base color. So that's going to wrap it up for this tutorial. So I hope you found this helpful, and thank you for watching. And if you'd like to purchase the project files to get all the balloons with the procedural materials, I will have the links to that in the description. You can also check out my Ultimate Blender Procedural Material Pack if you'd like to purchase all of my materials. And to learn how to create more procedural materials, you can check out my Blender Procedural Material Tutorial playlist. Link is in the description. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and thank you for watching.